what if you could just hit pause on getting older? It sounds like something straight out of a movie, but it's a question that scientists are taking very seriously. So today, we're going to break down the real science of longevity, and we're doing it with insights from a top epidemiologist who's here to sort the facts from the fiction for us. All right, let's just get right to the big one. The question on everyone's mind. Is it actually possible to halt aging in our lifetimes? I mean, some people are totally convinced a breakthrough is right around the corner, but the scientific community, they're a bit more cautious. The real goal, for now at least, isn't about stopping the clock cold. It's about slowing it down in a way that really matters. And to figure out how we can possibly slow it down, well, we first have to get a handle on why we age in the first place. So let's dive in. So our first section, the why of aging. To even begin to talk about living longer, we've got to ask, why do we even get old? And it turns out it's not really a bug in our system. It's more like a feature hardwired by evolution. Okay, so here's the core idea, and it's kind of mind-blowing. From evolution's point of view, your body has one main job: grow up, have kids, and maybe stick around long enough to make sure they survive. After that, evolution is, well, it's pretty much done with you. All those amazing internal repair systems that keep you going, they just weren't built to last forever. And that's exactly when things start to go wrong. And this whole process has a name, of course. It's called biological aging. You can think of it like this. It's the slow, steady accumulation of tiny bits of damage, little dings and dents in our cells and DNA. When you're young, your body's repair crew is amazing. They're on top of everything. But as the years pile on, they just can't keep up with the workload. And that's what leads to the big stuff, like tissue and organ failure. Okay, so that's the deep science, the stuff happening behind the scenes. But what does all that cellular wear and tear actually feel like? Let's talk about the signs and symptoms we all know, and maybe don't love, about getting older. The classic. I'm getting old. Why do my knees sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies? Well, it's really a 1-2 punch. First, that natural cushioning, the cartilage between your bones, it starts to get thinner over time. You get more of that lovely bone-on-bone friction. And on top of that, as we age, our bodies just tend to have more low-grade inflammation kicking around, which makes everything hurt just a little bit more. Now, you'd probably think aging is just this slow, steady slide downhill, right? But the science is actually pointing to something different. Research, a lot of it from Stanford, suggests it happens in bursts. It's like your body hits the accelerator at certain points. There seem to be these key moments when things speed up. One around your late 30s or early 40s, and then another big one when you hit your 60s. And, this process isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Men and women seem to age differently. Statistically, men tend to die sooner, and there's some evidence that on a molecular level, they're aging a bit faster. For women, though, there's often a really noticeable acceleration in aging that seems to kick in right around menopause. Okay, so we've covered the why and the what it feels like. Now for the part you've probably been waiting for. What can we actually do about it? Let's get practical and talk about living longer and, just as importantly, living better. If you ask the experts to name one single thing that just hammers our bodies and speeds up aging, they'll often say this: stress kills us. But, stress is such a vague word. What does that even mean? How does a terrible meeting at work actually cause physical damage to your body? Well, it's all about something called allostatic load. Here's how it works. A stressor happens. Let's say your boss is yelling at you. Your body immediately kicks into fight or flight mode, right? It floods you with hormones, ramps up inflammation, all the stuff you'd need to, say, run away from a saber-toothed tiger. That's great for ancient threats. But today, that response stays switched on because of constant modern stressors, emails, traffic, deadlines. And that chronic activation is what causes the wear and tear that damages our bodies and makes us vulnerable to disease. All right, next up, sleep. And it turns out this is a total Goldilocks situation. What I mean is big studies show a really clear U-shaped curve. People who get too little sleep are associated with shorter lifespans. No surprise there. But here's the kicker. People who get too much sleep are also associated with shorter lifespans. Now, it's a correlation, not necessarily cause and effect, but it really highlights how important it is to find that just right sweet spot for you. Okay, this brings us to something you've probably heard a lot about, the whole blue zone phenomenon. These little pockets around the world where people seem to live forever. So what's the deal? Is it legit? Well, the short answer is yes and no. The lessons from the blue zones are absolutely legit. The core formula, Eating a healthy diet but not too much, staying physically active, having really strong social bonds and a sense of purpose, these things are rock solid. They're scientifically proven ways to lower that allostatic load we were just talking about. The fundamental principles are totally on point. But, and this is a big but, there's a really interesting twist. It turns out that a lot of the most extreme claims of super long life might actually come down to something pretty boring: bad record keeping. I mean, think about it. In some of these remote areas a century ago, birth records weren't exactly standardized. So it's totally possible that some people reported as being 105 were actually, 92. And that can really skew the data. All right, we've talked about why we age and what we can do about it right now. But what about the future? Let's get into the really exciting stuff, the cutting-edge science that might just change the game completely. So there's this huge debate happening in the scientific community right now, and it's a big one. Is aging a disease? On one side, you have people saying, yes, if we classify it as a disease, then regulatory bodies could actually approve drugs to treat it. But on the other side, people say, no, aging is a normal, universal part of life, and we shouldn't pathologize it. It's a really fascinating argument. So, with all that in mind, what's the current record? What's the longest a human has ever verifiably lived? That record belongs to a French woman named Jeanne Calment, who lived to be an astonishing 122. That's the current known limit. But get this. Here's the truly wild part about her. She smoked for most of her life, she loved her chocolate, and she drank red wine. It just throws a wrench in everything we think we know about the perfect, healthy lifestyle, doesn't it? It's a huge reminder that genetics and just luck play an enormous role, and that this whole process is incredibly complex. And that complexity leads us to the technology that so many people are pinning their hopes on: CRISPR. So, how is this amazing gene editing tool going to help us cure aging? Well, here's the thing you need to know. For now, CRISPR is a game changer for scientists, not for patients. At least, not yet. You can't just go get a CRISPR shot to stop aging. Its real magic is how it turbocharges the pace of research. If a scientist wants to see if a certain gene is involved in aging, they can use CRISPR to just switch it off in some cells and see what happens. A process that used to take years can now be done in a matter of weeks. It's not the cure, but it's like a giant rocket booster for the people who are looking for one. And that brings us to a final, pretty humbling thought. 100 years ago, some doctors actually told people that exercise was bad for them. Can you imagine? So it makes you wonder, what advice are we giving out right now that people in 100 years from now will look back on and just say, wow, how stupid was that? It's a really good reminder that we're all still learning and we're just scratching the surface of what it truly means to live a long, healthy life.